Europe once controlled most of the world. Not influenced, not competed, controlled. At its peak, European empires ruled over 80% of the planet. They decided global trade. They drew borders. They controlled resources, economies, entire civilizations. But today, Europe doesn't dominate technology. It doesn't control global security, and it doesn't even control its own energy. So what happened? How did the most powerful region in human history lose control of the world? For centuries, Europe was the center of everything. Small nations like Britain, France, and Spain built empires that stretched across continents. Wealth flowed in from Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Global trade routes were designed around European power. If you wanted influence, you went through Europe. If you wanted wealth, you depended on Europe. This wasn't just power, it was total control. But that control came with a hidden weakness. It depended on one thing: Europe staying stable. And that stability didn't last. In the 20th century, Europe turned on itself. World War I shattered the continent. Over 16 million people were killed. Entire empires, the German, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian, collapsed. Economies were drained. Political instability spread across the region. But the real damage came next. Just 2 decades later, Europe went to war again. World War II didn't just weaken Europe, it broke it. Over 70 million people died. Major cities like Berlin, Warsaw, and London were reduced to rubble. Industries were destroyed. Infrastructure collapsed. Britain and France, once global superpowers, were financially exhausted. Germany was divided and occupied. Much of Eastern Europe fell under Soviet control. And by the end of it, Europe was no longer leading the world. It was dependent on American money, dependent on American security. It was trying to survive. And while Europe was collapsing, someone else was rising: the United States. Far from the destruction, American industries expanded. Its factories were running at full capacity while Europe's were in ruins. Its economy surged. Its military strength grew into the most powerful in the world. And after the war, the US stepped in, not just to help rebuild Europe, but to reshape the global system. Through the Marshall Plan, billions of dollars flowed into Europe. But this wasn't just aid, it created dependence. The dollar became the world's reserve currency. Global trade began running through American financial systems. American military power spread across Europe through NATO. US bases, troops, and security guarantees became the backbone of European defense. New global institutions, the IMF, World Bank, and the United Nations, were built around rules shaped largely by Washington. Power hadn't disappeared. It had shifted from European empires to American leadership. Europe was no longer in control. It was aligning with a new leader. At the same time, something even bigger was happening. Europe's empires were starting to fall apart. Across Asia and Africa, colonies began pushing for independence. What had once seemed unshakable was now being challenged everywhere. India broke free from British rule in 1947. Indonesia pushed out the Dutch. Vietnam fought the French. Across Africa, wave after wave of independence movements began to rise. This wasn't a single event. It was a global shift. Movements spread across continents. Colonial rule became harder to sustain, and one by one empires collapsed. By the 1960s, most of Europe's overseas empires were gone. And with them, Europe lost access to vast resources, cheap labor, and strategic control over global trade routes. The system that had once made Europe dominant was gone. Europe was no longer extracting power from the world. It had to compete within it, and that required a completely new approach. Europe needed a new way to stay relevant, so it tried something different. Instead of competing internally, it began to unite. The European Union was created to build economic strength and political stability. Borders became easier to cross. Trade barriers were reduced. A single market allowed goods, services, and capital to move freely. For many countries, a common currency, the euro, brought deeper integration. And for a time, it worked. Europe became one of the largest economic regions in the world. It created stability after decades of conflict. It turned former rivals into partners. But there was a limit. The EU was not a single country. It needed to It was a collection of nations with different interests, different priorities, and different political systems. There was no unified military, no single foreign policy, and no central authority that could act quickly in a crisis. Every major decision required agreement. And in a fast-changing world, that became a problem. Because while Europe was coordinating, others were accelerating. The United States pushed ahead in technology and innovation. It built global tech giants. It led in software, AI, and digital infrastructure. China scaled up manufacturing and industrial power. It became the world's factory. It invested heavily in infrastructure, supply chains, and state-driven growth. And Europe, it moved slower. Caught between American innovation and Chinese scale, Europe struggled to compete at the same level. At the same time, deeper structural problems started to emerge. Europe's population began aging. Birth rates declined, workforces shrank, fewer workers, supporting more retirees. Economic growth slowed, productivity gains became harder to sustain, and then came another vulnerability: energy. For years, Europe depended heavily on external suppliers, especially Russia. Cheap gas powered its industries. It kept factories running. It kept energy costs low. It was efficient. But it was also risky, because when tensions rose, that dependence turned into a weakness. When the war in Ukraine disrupted supply, Europe was suddenly exposed. Gas flows were cut. Energy prices surged. Electricity costs spiked across the continent. Industries struggled to stay competitive. Some factories slowed down, others shut down. Governments were forced to step in with massive subsidies. But the risk didn't end there. Because even beyond Russia, Europe still depends heavily on energy flowing through another volatile region, the Middle East, a region shaped by conflicts, rivalries, and constant geopolitical tension. From the Strait of Hormuz to the Suez Canal, some of the world's most critical energy routes pass through unstable territory. Any disruption, conflict, blockade, escalation could send shockwaves through European economies. Which means Europe's energy security isn't just fragile, it's exposed. Economic stability was shaken. And in today's world, stability is power. But the biggest shift wasn't just economic or political, it was technological. Modern global power is built on innovation, AI, digital infrastructure, semiconductors, and advanced industries. The United States leads in global tech. It is home to companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, and NVIDIA, firms that shape everything from software to artificial intelligence. China dominates in manufacturing scale. It controls critical supply chains. It produces everything from electronics to industrial equipment at massive scale. And it is rapidly investing in future technologies. And Europe? Europe, despite its strengths, has fewer global tech giants. It has strong industries, automobiles, engineering, pharmaceuticals, but fewer companies are defining the digital future. It struggles to compete at the same speed and scale. Innovation cycles are slower, investment is more fragmented, regulation is often heavier. And in a world driven by technology, falling behind doesn't just mean slower growth. It means losing influence. Today, Europe is still strong, it is wealthy, it is stable. It maintains a high standard of living. It plays an important role in global trade, diplomacy, and international institutions. But it no longer dominates. It no longer sets the rules of the global system the way it once did. The centers of power have shifted toward Washington and increasingly toward Beijing. And Europe? It operates within a system shaped largely by others, not absent from power, but no longer at the center of it. The story of Europe isn't just about decline, it's about transformation, from empires to nations, from rulers to participants. For centuries, Europe shaped the world. Today, it adapts to it. But the real question is, in a world increasingly shaped by the United States and China, can Europe rise again? Or has its era of global dominance already passed? And if power has truly shifted away from Europe, then who decides the future of the world now?